When looking at the graph of a line, there are 2 points that really stand out to us. So if you see the line that I drew here, the 2 points that I'm looking at that seem interesting are right here and right here. And the reason these are interesting is because this first one, which I'll call P1, intersects the x-axis. Remember, this is the x-axis. And the second one, let's call it P2, intersects my y-axis. Okay, so the points that do this, the points that intersect axes, are called intercepts. So this point here is called my x-intercept, and P2 is my y-intercept. Okay, now the reason we care about these is because to determine the equation of a line, you only need 2 points. Okay, and also to graph a line, you only need 2 points. So the x and y intercepts are good points to find. Why is that? Because, well, let's take the x-axis at first. So if you think, how would I get out to this P1 value? I'd have to go out so far in the x direction, but in the y direction I'd go 0. So this point has coordinate something, comma 0. The y coordinate is 0 for the x-intercept. Now on the y-intercept, I went 0 in the x direction, and then I went this far down in the y direction. So for a y-intercept, you have 0 for x, and then whatever you determine for y. So how do you find the x-intercept? You let y be 0 in your equation. How do you find the y-intercept? You let x be 0 in your equation. I'm going to show you some examples of this, and then show you how the intercepts help us graph a line. Okay, so here I have 2 linear equations, and I want to graph the equations, and I'm going to do that by finding the x and y intercepts. So the first one, part A, I have 2y plus 2x equals 4. Now remember, to find the x-intercept, I let my y be 0. So y is 0. If I plug in y equals 0 into this equation, what do I get? 2 times 0 plus 2x equals 4. 2 times 0 is 0, so I just end up with 2x equals 4. Solving a linear equation with one variable, I know my x is 2. So the x-intercept has coordinate 2, 0. Now, depending on your book, they might say the x-intercept is 2. But what they mean by that is that it's the coordinate 2, 0. Okay, for the y-intercept, I'm going to let x be 0. Okay, so when I do that, I have 2y plus 2 times 0 equals 4. And so very similar to the last equation, I end up with 2y equals 4, or y equals 2, which means that the y-intercept has coordinates 0, 2. So now I know 2 points on this line. Let's take a graph of this. So now looking at this grid, remember my x-intercept was the point 2, 0. So that goes 2 in the x direction, 0 in the y direction. It's right there. Okay, and my y-intercept was 0, 2. So it's 0 in the x direction and 2 in the y direction. So it's up here like this. Okay, so now that I have 2 points, all I have to do is just draw a straight line as best as I can that passes through those 2 points. And there it is. There's my line. Okay, so there's a line for part A. Let's look at part B. Alright, so in part B I have x plus y equals 1 plus 2y. Alright, again I want to get my intercepts. So first I'm going to find my x-intercept. Remember, I'm going to let y be 0. So when I do that, I end up with x plus 0 equals 1 plus 0. So that ends up with x equals 1. So my x-intercept is the point 1, 0. Now doing the same thing for my y-intercept. Remember, this time I let x be 0. And when x is 0, I have y equals 1 plus 2y. Remember, the x was 0, so you have a plus 0 here if you want. Now solving linear equations, I just have to subtract the 2y from both sides. So I have 1y minus 2y gives me negative 1y equals 1, which means y equals a negative 1, and so I have a y-intercept at 0, negative 1. Let's look at the graph to figure out what this looks like. Okay, so now remember my x-coordinate was 1, 0, so it goes 1 in the x direction, 0 in the y direction. There it is. And my y-intercept was 0, negative 1, so about like that. Now all I have to do is connect these 2 points with a straight line, and this is just a sketch, so it's not perfect, but there's a rough idea of what it looks like. I hope this makes sense. The intercepts are very useful to help us graph equations, especially ones in standard form. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be glad to help, and thanks for watching.